their ability and judgment as per their oath or affirmation of office made under Section 233A of the Local Government Act 1993.
Thank you, Councillor Dodd. Next, we have attendance, apologies, and applications for leave. And we actually do have 2 apologies today from Councillor Stadmiller, who was at a water conference in Parks, and also from Councillor Flannery. We also have Councillor Armstrong, who has applied to attend by Zoom. Do I have a mover? Thank you. Councillor Foreman, and a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Mackie. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Next, we do have a late report, and so a resolution to accept the late report, which is 1219 endorsement of Hilltops Council 2023-24 operational plan, budget, budget, revenue policy, fees and charges after public exhibition. Do I have a mover? Thank you. Councillor Piper, and a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Fitzgerald? Those in favour? Those against? Councillor Armstrong against. Thank you. Number 5, sympathy expressions. I ask that staff and members of the public be upstanding for a minute's silence to express our sympathy on the passing of the following. We have Bobby Sims, Neil Gledhill, Janita Corcoran, Eileen O'Brien, Joel Edwards, Judith Butt, Leonard Good, Bradley Cross, Winfred McKenna, Charlie Lovell, Bernadette Curtis, Ronald Hargraves, Ernest Thompson, Beverly Solar, Darryl Taylor, Carmel Shea, Moya Patterson, Helen Wall, Harriet Corey, Betty Evans, Anthony Leonard, and Julie Ann Monk. Thank you, councillors. All right, we move on to confirmation of minutes. 6.1 confirmation of minutes for the Hilltops Council Ordinary Meeting, 24th of May, 2023. Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Thank you, Councillor Piper. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. And we have also from the extraordinary meeting, confirmation of minutes for Hilltops Council Extraordinary Meeting on 29th of May 2023. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Hewson, and a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Foreman. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Any disclosures of interest received? No. No mayoral minute. I'll move down to the mayoral report for May, June 2023. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Hewson. Seconded, Councillor Dodd. The dates are there, and over the page you can see the dates are there. I might just comment on one, and that was the country mayors in Sydney, and both Councillor Armstrong and Councillor Stadmiller, you had a question. And Councillor Armstrong, I think yours related to the emergency service level, about it being did it have to be included in the rates? And there is no option at the moment but to include it in the rates. But there was a bit of discussion on whether it could be shown eventually, and I presume that would be legislation to do this, to be shown as a separate line item. And Councillor Stadmiller asked what would happen if we didn't pay them. Well, it's just illegal. I'd say we'd end up in court. So those two. So there's a summary of where I've been this month. All those in favour? I need a second. I have. Oh, pardon me. Okay. Anybody against? Those against? No. Thank you, Steve. Right, we'll move. 10.1. My report on 10.1. And the recommendations there that the report on the National General Assembly and the Local Government Association meetings be accepted. Do I have a mover? Thank you. Councillor Hewson and Councillor Piper. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody.
Madam Mayor, I had a question in regard to your report.
Yes.
Just in regards to the federal assistance grants.
Yeah.
Whether there was any advance notice of the levels of prepayment for council in ensuing years, given the levels of prepayment in the last 5 years have been rather generous. Last year was almost 50% prepaid for council. I'm just wondering, nearly 50% of the general purpose, and about, I think it was off the top of my head, about I think about 3 times.
Yes.
The road component. It was a fairly generous sort of a prepayment, but I'm just concerned that going forward, whether those prepayments of that magnitude have actually been telegraphed out to local government, or whether with a new federal government we can expect a reining in of prepayments, and as a result of that, significant difficulty in cash flow.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll have the CFO talk to that. We've just received an answer to that question. I'm unsure how it was discussed at the time. I don't believe the people knew at the time, but Mr. Smith.
Councillor Armstrong, yeah, your question is valid. We haven't received the breakdown of that advance payment, but it probably would infer that it's the last payment for this financial year, and possibly looks like by the amount that it's probably the first repayments of the next financial year. What that would mean for the final payment next year is unknown at this stage. So it's whether we would get the final payment at around June 2024.
So through you, Madam Mayor, we have received the cash, Councillor Armstrong. The number was some
10.3 million.
$10.3 million we've received this week.
My understanding is that that any remaining payments will still be paid to us on a quarterly basis rather than in the form of a lump sum.
Yeah, look, it doesn't. We are unsure what this means. So we received the payment, so we're going to make inquiries. We just thought it appropriate that. Well, you've now asked the question, so we have received the money. But what that means, as into timing, we still have to ask that question of the grantor.
Yeah, and at the Assembly, Councillor, no details were given. It was just an indication that there would be a payment coming.
So once we know, Councillor Armstrong, we'll report back to council when we understand what that means for timing. Because there's a question for us as well. Thank you.
I'm reminded of council's poor cash situation. This will certainly help, but at the end of the day, it doesn't fix it.
That is correct. Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
Okay, if we move on to 10.2, 23.129, and councillor meetings attended. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Dodd, and the seconder, Councillor Mackie. we have before you, recordings from most. If I go round, Councillor Ingram, do you want to add any?
Meetings is minuted.
Thank you. Councillor Foreman?
I just need to omit the Hilltops Business Chamber Forum and add I attended the documentary on One Day in the Haram.
We both did. It was a good night, wasn't it?
It was very, very educational.
What day was that?
That was last Friday evening. Sorry.
Okay. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Meeting says minuted, and I'll provide a report on the Marsden's local government conference to the next council meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Mackie?
We'll just check that, Councillor.
I feel like I was here.
I have, we've noted
Yeah.
who was
Yeah.
attending and who's not, so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
change that.
Hello. Councillor Hewson? Okay. Councillor Piper?
No, nothing else.
You're always a busy person. And Councillor Dodd?
Just the 23rd of June film, one day in the Haram.
And Councillor Armstrong?
Nothing to add.
Thank you. Had a mover and seconder. I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. The next one, number 11, Community Recognition Scheme. Does anybody have one? I do. I would just like recognition of our newest recipient of an Order of Australia, and that's Cliff Sheridan. Very well deserved. I've worked with Cliff on a number of committees, and the commitment that he has shown to young and the wider community has been extraordinary, and it is well deserved.
I'll second that nomination.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Right. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. The next one, 12.1, we have listed in the executive meetings attended. We have it. We have a mover. Thank you, Councillor Foreman, and a seconder. Councillor Hewson. Those in favour?
Question?
Question? Yes. Councillor Armstrong.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I note that a number of the executive have met with Tech One, and I noticed in the ARIC business paper yesterday there was an item, a very scant item, I might add, in regards to Tech One. It appears as though there was that was more of a verbal report than a written report. Can I ask that council receive a comprehensive report next month in regards to the situation with Tech One, where we're up to with it, and what our costs have been or likely to be?
Thank you, Councillor.
Through you, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Certainly, Councillor Armstrong, that was agreed to at the Audit and Risk and Improvement Committee yesterday, in fact, in terms of an initial meeting held on the 19th of June and plans in terms of future development of the product in the next 12 months. That hasn't been refined yet, but I am doing a report to the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee.
Okay. I'll put this floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Move on to 12.2, the Cash and Investment Report, which is in front of us all. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Dodd, and seconder. Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Any questions? Yes.
Question to the CFO in regard to the two term deposits for one from Macquarie Bank and one for St George Bank that have both passed their maturity date very recently. I'm just wondering what the new rates were for those two.
Yes, Councillor Armstrong, the St George rate was 4.16 and the Macquarie rate was around 4%. And they have been,
Thank you.
They have been renewed. Yep.
Thank you.
Pardon me, my mic. Those in favour? Thank you, unanimous. Thank you. We'll move on to 12.3, outstanding rates and charges and sundry debtors report. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Foreman, and a seconder. Councillor Hewson. Thank you. Any questions?
Question.
Councillor Armstrong.
When will council be receiving the comprehensive report in regards to the outstanding debts and the steps taken to recover those? In particular, I look at I refer to the grants outstanding which have exceeded a year. In particular, I can see a number of them there that relate to a bridges replacement program. I'd just like to see what we need to do, what's required to finalise these grants, or whether indeed we're ever going to get them. We were going to get a report earlier on about this, but I don't think we've got too far with it.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, Councillor Armstrong. So the only the two environmental trust projects have actually started. So we're not concerned about those. The 40,000 with the Department of Premier is still in dispute, but the other grants have all been lodged, and I know it's difficult to follow, but the 192 is the first three there, which happens to be the overdue 2 and 5U shown on the table. The 737 happens to be those two with the Crown Finance, Hannon's Bridge and Spring Creek Bridge, and those applications have gone in. They've been provided. So we've got no concerns. The only issue at the moment we've got is the $40,000, which we're in dispute with the Premier's Department to claim they paid it. We can't trace it. So financial accountants looking into that again with planning to try and determine when that payment was received. So the other two projects have actually started, the environmental trust projects.
Mr. CFO, can you just restate that we've just put the claims in for those bridge jobs?
The Hannon's Bridge and the Spring Creek Bridge, the claims have been lodged for those. So we're not concerned about those in terms of recovery. That adds up to the 737,126, which is shown there. Okay.
Would they be outstanding if we hadn't put the claims in?
Sorry?
Would they be outstanding if we haven't put the claims in? I'm just wondering why they're outstanding. If we've only just put the claims in June 2023, and these are May 22, they'd hardly be outstanding, would they? Because we haven't claimed it, it wouldn't be due to be paid.
Yeah, no, the claims have been lodged for that. I've been advised the claims have been lodged for those two, for the Hannon's Bridge and the Spring Creek Bridge.
Can I ask when they were lodged?
I can't answer that. I'll take that on notice, but I can certainly advise you.
Therein lies the problem.
Mr. CFO, can we please get that report? It's long overdue. This needs to come back to council. If we've only just lodged the claims for those, then I don't really see how they could be outstanding. Surely, the only way that they could be outstanding is if the claims had been lodged and the money hadn't been paid.
That's not quite correct. I mean, take Bundabo Bridge, which has been subject to weather events over the last several months, and we're still waiting on that money.
Well, perhaps when the report comes back to us, when your report comes back to us, we can have the error of our ways shown to us in that.
Okay,
but up until that point, I'd be suggesting that the money's not owed to you until such time as you claim it.
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, that's why they're sitting in the debtors ledger.
When do the claims go in?
They're sitting in the debtors ledger. The claims have been raised.
When were they raised?
And that's the question I'd have to come back to you and advise. I'll do a report and advise you when all those claims have been lodged.
Will that be next month?
Yes, I can do that for next month.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, CFO. I'll put it to the floor if there are no more questions. Those in favour? Those against? Councillor Ingram against. All the rest in favour. Thank you. Go to the next one, which is 12.4, and it's draft conflict of interest management policy for council-related development.
Move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Councillor Piper.
I've missed somewhere. We're on 12.3 before. We're talking about overdue accounts. I have one here on the water usages and how people haven't paid.
Point of order.
Yes.
Point of order. This matter's been dealt with.
Yes. Councillor Piper, we've already dealt with that, so we can't go back.
Fair enough.
Thank you. So we'll keep going with 12.4. Are there any questions on that? It's a draft conflict of interest. If not, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Which brings us to 12.5, 23-134 Streets as Shared Spaces Initiative. The recommendation is in front of you. Do I have a mover? Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move a motion.
Councillor Foreman just moved it.
I had my hand in the air before it was moved, Madam Mayor. As you were speaking, my hand was in the air.
Well, my apologies, Councillor Armstrong. I didn't see that.
Your call, Madam Mayor.
It's my call. All right, Councillor Armstrong, I'll accept that. Councillor Foreman, are you happy to second? Thank you.
Sorry, Madam Mayor.
Oh, the motion.
I said I wanted to move a motion. I didn't say I wanted to move a recommendation.
Oh, you want to move a motion? Pardon me.
Yes.
You have the floor, Councillor Armstrong. Your motion is?
My motion would this matter be deferred until the July meeting of council, whereupon a full report into the methods of communication to councillors of the proposed over expenditure, along with the full breakdown of costs for removal of the street furniture and or relocation of any existing street furniture be furnished to council.
Okay, we'll just wait a minute till it's up.
I'm happy to second that.
Okay, moved by Councillor Armstrong, second by Councillor Ingram. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I am. I have significant concerns in the way that the report has been worded. The facts of the matter are that not all councillors have received a briefing on a change of scope, because that briefing was a verbal briefing provided at a councillor workshop that not all councillors were in attendance at. Those that were absent were not notified, and there was no report provided to the November 22 council meeting. So there hasn't been any consultation with councillors in regard to any change of scope there. In regards to the difficulties or the potential of overrun of the grant-funded project, the December 22 QBR was presented to council some 8 days prior to the point at which it became apparent that the delivery date would be missed and that the projected costs to complete the installations would exceed the budget. Still no advice to council, despite 8 working days. We then have the suggested costs to remove this equipment, and I'm not suggesting it needs to be removed, but there certainly needs to be a thorough breakdown on it, of $27,400 for all of it. Yet one piece is $5,600. So I'm at a bit of a loss how it can cost us $120,000 to put in, and we can take it all back out for 27. So I think we need a budget there for that. The other issue I have is that the cost is indicated as overrun 325,013, yet the costs, as detailed in the report, are $1,000 less than that. No explanation where the other $1,000 went to. So I think that this report at the moment is incomplete. There needs to be a fuller explanation along with costs come back to council for council to consider it. I'm not suggesting that it has to come out, and please don't anyone think that I am, but this appears to have been something that has been totally underestimated in terms of the initial site itself, the difficulties in building it, and we've still gone ahead and spent $37,500 on materials that weren't used and incurred a $25,000 budget overrun. So I think that when in the fullness of time, we can get a better report that provides better background, better context, so as we can understand exactly where this thing went wrong.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll just ask the Minute Secretary to bring the motion up so you can see it, Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a clarification question? So this motion is replacing the other motion?
This is the motion. There's no.
So I could foreshadow a motion to return to
refer to the other one. Is that what you're doing, Councillor Dodd?
That's what I would like to do.
Okay, you're foreshadowing that goes back to the original recommendation. Duly noted. Councillor Armstrong, are they the words, or do you need additional words in that mix?
That may be deferred to July meeting. On on the method over proposed expenditure and the cost. No. What we wanted is matter to be deferred until the July meeting for production of a full report on the method of costing and communications with council over proposed expenditure with full details of cost and removal options. And the rest of it can just come out then. And an S instead of it, that's options. So that's it.
So, Councillor Armstrong, that's complete there. Matter to be deferred to July meeting for production on method of costing and communications with council over proposed expenditure with full detail of cost and removal options.
Yes.
Councillor Ingram, you're fine with still seconding?
I am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Armstrong spoke for the motion. Do we have a speaker against the motion? Councillor Foreman will speak against the motion.
I was actually going to move an amendment myself, but I think that the in regards to Councillor Armstrong's amendment, I tend to disagree. I can see that there's overspends, and I can also appreciate the difficulty it was initially when the streets for shared spaces was brought. I know I had to look at it just as a Boorowa Street business owner, and I thought it was a great concept. I can understand the concerns with the overspend. That's a given, but I think personally that it's been really well received by the community. I mean, a report is fine, but when we look at the basis of the furniture being installed, how it's been beneficial for the community, how the, you know, the terrace seating is, you know, is there. I feel that the terrace seating should stay. I don't think we need to spend any more money to remove it. I think it hasn't had a good chance to be utilised by anybody. We've got the Cherry Festival and things like that coming up. There's nothing for kids nor teens in the main street. I think it will grow when people understand the usage of it. I think I've only had positive feedback on the streets for shared spaces, and you know, look, it's had its hiccups, but I believe that it was done unintentionally. I just think sometimes, you know, you start a project and it just doesn't quite work out the way that you initially projected it to, and we just have to adapt and change with that. So
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have another speaker? Oh, Councillor Ingram.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And to your point, Deputy Mayor, I don't think Councillor Armstrong mentioned a word against shared spaces concept of the work that's been done at all, and I'm pretty sure he agrees that it's pretty good. I don't want to speak for Councillor Armstrong, but I have the same feelings that, yeah, it's great, successful, very good. I tend to disagree with our Deputy Mayor on the red tins, but other than that, great success. What Councillor Armstrong's motion is trying to enable councillors is to understand how the overrun came about and how these things happen. This is not another case of saying, yes, we've got a grant, you beauty, it's costing no one any money. Here we are with another grant, it's going to cost money. That's all about costing jobs. When this was proposed, they went out when the question was asked about financial to do this work, and it's in the report, we have a great contingency of $90,000. What I didn't know till I got the business paper and that about the $25,000 overrun, there's $37,500 worth of staff stacked in the shed in the depot. This project was never, ever going to come in under cost. So what happened then is something that is apparent in a number of areas, and that is, this is capital works, but money being shifted and dealt with to make it happen. There's only one way that really should happen, councillors, and that's by a resolution of us, a resolution of councillors. This is another case of where staff have spent money and reported to councillors afterwards. We took an oath, and I note now in the opening of the meeting, the Mayor has a oath on ethics. We need to abide by them. We need to make sure the community are safe and feel confident in us as councillors to make sure that we know where the funding that we allocate is going. I believe that's probably on, again, not speaking to Councillor Armstrong, but by the reports he's asked for, that would enable councillors to get a close look of how this went wrong and how simple things can lead to overruns. And when it's costing council money to implement something that started out as a grant, and we're all told is well and good and really good because it's grant money, which is, you know, taxpayers' money, of course, as well, but then this happens without councillors knowing till after the fact. I commend Councillor Armstrong on requesting a report of all the costings and support that motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Ingram. And Councillor Dodd, your hand up was...
Yes, I'd like to speak against it.
Thank you.
I too have some concerns about how this was handled. I have concerns with the consultation process before it happened, about disability access, about how it was decided that the proposed surface treatment was not actually going to work, and so that is infrastructure and planning talking to each other. There seems to be there were some great things that were done, but there were some things in here that I was not so happy with, but I would still pass the recommendation, but I'm not against getting a report because I think there were some things here that could have been done better. But if it's operational, very happy that the people in planning and infrastructure look at what happened, look at what didn't happen so well, and work out themselves what they would do different next time. And I'd rather that there was a change within council than that we had another report.
Thank you, Councillor Dodd. We've had 2 for, 2 against. We put it to the vote. Yes, right of reply, Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Once again, I want to assure councillors that I am not suggesting that it needs to come out. I have never, ever suggested it needs to come out. But I think that council, in this instance, council has clearly seen that there has been little, if any, pre-preparation work done for the works, that is scoping works in terms of the sites, to the detriment of council, that there has been a significant failure on the part of staff to advise council of the potential for overrun of the thing, and as a council that is cash poor, that is the big issue for us, because even though materials may be returned to store, they've still got to be paid for, and the fact that they're in the store doesn't make that cost go away. The other issue in here that is particularly concerning is that someone on staff has taken the view that reputational risk exceeded the value of the over expenditure. Now, Madam Mayor, I'm not going to talk about reputational risk, but what I will talk about is the fact that council is the only one that can vote that expenditure, not staff. It's not a delegated function. It's a non-delegable function. So I believe that this needs to come out into the open air. I'm not suggesting there's anything untoward in there, but it smacks of a project that has had little, if indeed any, forethought in terms of the site or sites and the difficulties to be encountered at those sites. I am greatly concerned that there is no breakdown of costs when it comes to an estimate to remove it, or a breakdown of costs for something that clearly, for $5,600, clearly at about a fifth or so of the 20% of the total costs to remove one piece of equipment, then there is clearly a lack of balance between the two figures. I don't know how the surplus materials, $37,595 of materials that were purchased that were never used in the project, will be treated in terms of council moving forward with them. And I'm greatly concerned that there is no recognition of the financial risk involved with this whole project. It's as though we just expected to forget about it and we'll do better next time. Well, until such times, and I take on board the point Councillor Dodd makes, but until such times as these details are brought out and reduced to writing so council can consider them, then I don't think that there's going to be any better arrangements between the requestor of services and the provider of services. So I would very much encourage councillors to think about this project as a litany of errors that's perhaps going to yield some benefits to the community. But we probably need to bring it out into the daylight to work out how we can fix this problem, because this type of problem is one that we can't afford.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. If there are no more, I'll put it to the floor. Remembering what the motion is, that the matter be deferred to July meeting for production on method of costing and communications with council over proposed expenditure with full details of cost and removal options. Those in favour of the motion?
Ingram, Councillor Piper. Mackie. Councillor Ingram, Councillor Mackie, Councillor Piper, Councillor Armstrong.
Those against?
Foreman, Councillor Fitzgerald, Councillor Rolls, Councillor Hughes, Councillor Dodd, lost.
The motion is lost. So we go to the foreshadowed motion, which is to return to the original recommendation. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor Dodd, would you like to speak?
Can I put an amendment to that? Or not? I'll have to leave it as is.
Through and you've foreshadowed to go back to the
Yes.
original motion, but you can, as the mover and seconder, it would be unusual if another councillor was to move an amendment. Then and if you accepted that, then that would become the motion. I see Councillor Foreman has an amendment pending. You're going to move
I would like to move an amendment. That's possible. Thank you. I would like to remove B from the recommendation.
So that is to remove the terrace, to remove B, which is to remove the terrace seating on the Lynch Street corner and install surplus street furniture in that location using funding of 5.6 from the Young Section 9.4A plan. So if we remove all that, we have A, C, and D. Am I correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
So,
Okay.
Councillor Dodd, that would just be the
Yes.
non-removal of the red seating.
Yes. Are you
Non-removal. Are you
happy to accept that?
to accept that, or do you want that amendment to go to a vote?
I'd like that amendment to go to a vote, please.
Okay.
All right.
It doesn't go.
Well, if they accept
Thank you.
Sorry, just for procedural. If the mover and seconder accepted what the amendment would be, it becomes part of the motion. Right. She said no. So therefore the amendment then
We have
becomes, she's moved an amendment and Councillor Foreman would need a seconder of the amendment and then it
And
would
then
go
we
to a
vote on
vote.
that.
And I believe Councillor Fitzgerald, did you second that? Oh, you seconded that. So
So
is there a seconder for
Councillor Foreman's amendment. I'll second it. Is the removal of B. Discussion? Yes. Councillor Foreman, do you want to speak for it?
Like I said previously, I just strongly feel that we don't need to spend another $5,600. We haven't seen if that terrace seating can actually will it be utilised? I just think that it hasn't been given long enough time. We know all the seating is well received. That's a given. That's wonderful. The wheelchair access is great. For all the time and effort that has gone into it, I think, like I said previously, the feedback has been wonderful from the community. The railings and everything that were not initially planned for, that probably have contributed to the overspend, they have all been positives. So, but I just feel with the terrace seating, that was an underutilised section of BOOROWA and Lynch Street. It's something for children to play on. It's something for teenagers to mill around on. I think once it starts to be utilised, people will understand the concept behind it was for festivals and a different meeting space and a point of difference to the main street. I think it just hasn't been given a chance to really be utilised by the community and probably accepted, given its length of time that it has been there. I'd like to see it being given a bit longer. And once again, I don't feel that we need to spend any more money by removing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foreman.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, look, I'm a bit gobsmacked, to be quite honest about it. Just the Mayor and Deputy Mayor move an amendment against the recommendation of staff. There's a first for everything. Up until that very point, everything that's come before us from staff, they were expert staff and excellent in their field, has been ticked off, and doesn't matter if it's $5 million or what it is. We have a $5,000 matter here, and you're going against staff. So it's a start. I'm pleased to see that. My other comment in regard to the matter and voting on it now So all the motion from Councillor Armstrong was to defer for a month till we all got a clear understanding of the financial workings and implications. And I just can't see why councillors don't want to know what's going on behind confidential briefings and letting the public know and yourself know how things work. But great democracy we live in, but I'll be voting against that amendment, Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram. Does anybody else want to speak for it? Councillor
I just
Piper.
want to speak. The whole lot of it is that Councillor Armstrong is bringing up to council is I'm not in favour of getting rid of it. All I want is to have an explanation put forward where everything started, where everything's gone to at the moment. And at that, then as a council, we can make a decision on whether we've got to leave the red things there or whether we can do other things with it. And I'm not voting for it either. I think the only one, once I've been in young here, I spoke to one person about his car and I introduced myself as a councillor and he said, oh, by the way, those red things up there are really great. Now, this was an old bloke. He wasn't going to be sitting on it with his teenage kids. But that's one explanation that's come through. So let's get a final report and see what we're going to do. Don't just higgledy-piggledy jump in.
Councillor Piper, that's already been resolved. What we're doing now is whether we're going to, the amendment that we take out B, and that's take out the red hats. That's what we're voting. So are you for that or against it? That's, I presume. That was just a comment, I take it.
That was just a comment.
That was just a comment. Okay. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just concerned that here's council making decisions on the fly again. This is the way in which we're judging this community satisfaction is a bit like cherry picking, I think, is that we're looking at a survey. Well, I've never seen the survey. Emails. I don't know how many emails there are or where they've come from. Talking to retailers, I've talked to some retailers about it, yes, and reviewing social media comments. Now, I'm reminded that there are times when councillors like to read social media and they don't like to read social media. So I don't really think that is a realistic way of gauging public sentiment across the board. I'm just wondering why there hasn't been this. This is a project that affects the whole of the community of Young and anyone else that visits the main street. And we haven't had a period of public consultation for a period of 28 days for the community to make some consult with council to make some comments, much in the way that council hasn't been given the opportunity to be informed of the cost overruns until the overruns have occurred. Why change this now? At the end of the day, I don't believe that there's been adequate consultation, and as a result of that, I can't see that leaving the red seating there or taking it out is of any consequence, because at the end of the day, the public are the ones who are going to be happy with it, not just council.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Director, do you want to make a comment perhaps on the consultation process?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So, first off, I might just want to say, in terms of lessons learned, I want to be really clear that the one thing that officers have really picked up through this is that when we're putting in grant applications for these kind of projects, it's really important that there's a defined and agreed delivery program for that. Because what this report does is address the process we went through and the fact that this project did not start on a good footing. So you note that this project, the grant was applied for and we received it back in April last year. And then when I came into the role in August, in the first few weeks, I got my briefing. I was informed that our first delivery milestone was September and that 5 months had passed and there hadn't been very much action on it. And so at that point in time, we talked to and this was this paper then outlines is how we manage the risk from them and the way that we address our funders' concerns, because it was clear when I talked to them that were keen to see us deliver on our commitments to them when we got the funding. And from talking and from the soundings I got coming into the role about the importance for us to retain our funders' confidence in us in our delivery and our ability to deliver. Now, in terms of the consultation and engagement, in that context, where this report says we did not engage with our community about parklets, that's what we applied for, and no work was done. So given that, we said, well, what can we do? Because the idea of going to our community and saying we're going to be taking car parks out and around Christmas time and putting in, an activation was going to be problematic if we hadn't done that work up front. So there's lesson number one. So what we did was look at what we could do on the spaces that we had control of, which were the open spaces in front of pedestrian crossings. And we did, and then we did the work to draft up what that could be. And we did talk to adjacent retailers and brought the concept to you at a briefing. At that point in time, it was an idea that we had developed up. We had done some costing around what it could look like, and we were seeking your input and feedback as to whether that would be an acceptable solution, given we weren't doing parklets anymore. At that point in time, in terms of that very high level initial concept plan, we thought that we could deliver that project within the funding that we got through the grant, and that's what we've outlined here. Now, in the work, and so this report then outlines the steps from there. So then after that, we did the detailed design work and involved our operational team in terms of how we would actually deliver that idea. And it was through that process that we worked out that because of the gradient of the site, the surface treatment that we proposed wasn't going to work, and we then moved to the timber idea. Now, at that point in time, I absolutely accept we didn't come back to you and do a briefing to say, here exactly is what we're proposing, and here's the cost implications. At that point in time, because as you see from these figures, the street furniture was $150,000, so that left half the budget for the surface treatment and the installation. At the point that we initially looked into that, we had a $90,000 contingency, and that was to cover the additional labour cost to do the installation of the timber and the platforms, plus, and that's both in time and in material. We thought that was going to be adequate at that point in time based on our assessment, but as this report really highlights, that was a decision we made early in the new year after we had purchased the furniture. So we had a real reputational risk. The furniture, we'd spent the money because we were expecting to do something, and then we found that the surface approach wouldn't work. And so going to Councillor Armstrong's point and Councillor Ingram's, ideally we would have had all that worked out. Absolutely. And I can say that on my watch, we will not be putting up a grant for this kind of project without doing the work on what the delivery program was. But all I can say is I inherited this and this. We've tried to, with the help of our colleagues in infrastructure, to come up with a solution that delivers on the expectations of our funders, makes a difference, and hits the brief that we did. The feedback we got from the community has supported that. It's been reasonably well received. Ideally, we would have done a lot more engagement with our community. So
can I just ask him to
answer the question? The question was about communication with our community.
Consultation. Wasn't there a survey and near the
So in terms of feedback from what we undertook, because the funder requires us to do an assessment and evaluation, and there's a very prescribed form for how that's done. And there's multiple elements to that. So what we did is elicited feedback from retailers. So we talked to retailers directly. We ran a survey that that people could do by answering a Survey Monkey survey via the QR codes and posters around that. we did canvass and review social media because this project did attract social media comment, and that was a mixture of views, and also people wrote to us directly and provided feedback. So we collated all that into the assessment of the impact of this project.
Thank you. I believe that goes towards addressing the question that was asked the last 2 minutes. Could councillors please be provided with that feedback and information, please, so we can get our understanding of what our community and the people who put their hand up to those surveys said, because at the moment, all we've got is a 2 minute saying that you consulted with someone. We've got no idea who or what their comments were. So could we please be provided with that information, please?
Through you, Madam Chair, the summary is on page 60.
On page
60.
I particularly like that the QR code and the information about providing feedback was actually at the sites, so that where people, the users of the equipment or the seats, had the opportunity right then and there to use the QR code on their phone. And I actually thought that was a really good idea, a way to get feedback from the actual users.
Thanks for pointing the page here to me, but it doesn't answer the question that I was trying to ask. Can we have some evidence of the survey and the results? Not what was done. You explained to us what was done, and on page 60, can we see the results that were achieved from that?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Usually, as in a later report, we provide a summary of the comments, etc. Not all of them. That's been the process. Councillor Armstrong.
and then Councillor Mackey. I think you had a question too.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Through you, Madam Mayor. Mr. General Manager, it's a question for you. Which council staff member has delegations to vary council's capital budgets?
None.
But here we have a capital budget that's been varied based upon risk, reputational risk. So
Practice. The practice that I've experienced is not all budgets are exact to the dollar, and usually they're resolved through overs and unders through the quarterly budget process.
I'm sorry, these are grant funds though. These are exact numbers. Because with a grant, you don't get any more.
That's correct.
So in this case, that the overs and unders doesn't apply. But what you're telling me is that no staff member has a delegation to make that decision. Yet a decision has been made without any consultation of council. That's reprehensible. I think that's the reason why I've asked for a full report for this. The other question
we're discussing an amendment.
Thank you.
We're discussing an amendment to do with the red seating, and I'd like to deal with that, please.
Yes. I agree. We'll come back to the amendment, and I think the red seating, and we will.
Just through you, Madam Mayor, just one thing when we're talking about the red seating, because you want to take it out, but was it well received? And if so, why do you want to take it out?
Yep. So in terms of community feedback, it was a mixed response. So it was definitely the item that had the lowest level of support, but there was definitely a good amount, less than 50%, around, I'm going to quantify it around about sort of 35 to 40%. The reason why we're recommending taking it out is around opportunity cost. So given how well the other seating has been received, we think that by removing that and putting more seating and tables and chairs and the like in there, you could actually host a larger group of people there, and we may get like a community group deciding to use that space as a single space for them potentially. And we also think that the red terrace seating could actually go well somewhere else on one of our parks and reserves, or in the partnership with a community organisation. So we think it definitely has a place in Hilltops. But yeah, so that's why we're recommending that.
Okay, thank you, Director. Look, we've had 2 for and against. This is for the amendment, remember?
Point of clarification, please. Just sorry, Madam Mayor, before we go.
Yes.
The Director just said that if the red tin drums seating were to come out, you sure they could be utilised somewhere in Hilltops? Well, then we'll have to look at where the funding is coming from to have them removed. If we're going to use funding out of the, as stated in your report, that would mean that that would have to be relocated from where that funding come from. Can I have some clarification in regards to that, please?
So my understanding of the process is, per the original recommendation, the cost for $5,600 is to remove it. It's put into storage, and a later decision on where it would then go, and that would involve a further budget allocation to replant it somewhere, if that's the decision of council to do it. If we just remove it, we remove it. So that's the part that must come back to council for its relocation position. And given the interest in the red hats, I think the term has been used, to relocate that to any park, that would involve consultation. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So let's get back to this amendment. We've had much discussion on it.
Madam Mayor, I've just got one question to the General Manager in regards to the financial implications of that. If the red seating, tiered seating is relocated, and the $5,600 is paid for out of this young Section 94A contributions, will the cost of installation also be met out of those 94A contributions, or will the cost of installation, that is the installation where they are now, the in situ installation, will that be met out of the grant funds?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe the Director has a response.
Yes.
So through you, Madam Mayor, if we were to bring back a report with a proposal to reinstall the terrace seating somewhere else, it would depend on that location, whether a contributions plan would be an appropriate source of funding to fund that installation, or have to come from somewhere else. It would not come from this grant funding, because this grant funding was for the.
No, yeah. There's a bit of misunderstanding there. The cost that the council has already incurred in putting those things in, would those costs be credited back against the job if they were taken out, or would council effectively incur those costs and do that money cold?
The question that I'd have to review is what if it is of capital of nature or not. The value of the asset must be maintained. The removal of it would not add value to the asset, so I believe that would be expended. So it would go through the profit and loss, rather than, and the further installation would be a capital item, because it would be the securing of an asset in situ.
So we would still incur the costs of putting them there against the job.
The cost of installation, whatever that cost would be, well, again, that would depend on its location. That would be capitalised because it would be the securing of the asset to a position somewhere within Young or Hilltops. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We've had lots of discussion. Let's put it to the vote. Remember, this is for the amendment, and that's to remove the
removal of the terrace seating.
Yep. And the original one, remove the terrace seating on the Lynch Street corner.
So just to say, councillors are clear, if the amendment fails,
we go back to that.
It stays there and it is to be removed. So
I understand, because we go back to the original motion. All right. Those in favour of the amendment. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Rolls and Tony Houston. Those against.
Those against.
Ingram, Piper, Dodge, and Armstrong.
Okay, the amendment. And now becomes the
motion.
The motion.
So the motion now reads A, B, and C.
So we have before us the motion. A, receive and note the report. B, allocate additional funding, 25,000 to the Streets as Shared Spaces Initiative, and retain all other installations from the Street and Shared Spaces Initiative. Okay. Now, we need a mover?
Oh, that's right.
No, we've had a mover.
The mover has been, excuse me, Madam Mayor, the mover was Councillor Dodd and Councillor Fitzgerald.
Okay, Councillor Dodd and Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor Dodd, do you want to speak to this?
Nothing more than what's already been said.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fitzgerald.
No, I think the report is clear and detailed enough.
Thank you. If there are no other comments, I'll
speak against.
Councillor Ingram, Councillor Armstrong, if you're going to speak against.
I'll speak against, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Once again, I disagree entirely with Councillor Fitzgerald. I don't think he's reading the same report that I'm reading. This report is glossing over significant deviations from what I would call good governance in terms of actually advising councillors that a budget is being overspent. I refer to the four principles of sound financial management produced by one of Australia's leading audit firms and former local government auditors, where the most significant point is ensure full, accurate and timely disclosure of financial information relating to the council. Now, here's a classic example of that financial information not being supplied to council, yet 8 days later it's known. I think this is a disgrace. I cannot support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. If there are no more comments, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Gerald, Mackie. Those against? Piper and Councillor Armstrong. Motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Let's move on. We're going to 12.6, and that's development application statistics for May 2023. Do I have a mover? Okay, thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. And a seconder? A seconder? Councillor Foreman. Councillor, any questions? Councillor Fitzgerald?
Yeah, just a question of the Director of Planning. Just the process, I'm still coming to grips with it, and my inexperience shines out often, and I apologise for that. But if somebody puts in a development application which fits in with the guidelines, the staff will either approve it or not, but they send out letters to affected residents. If you get a submission back from somebody who disagrees with it, does it then become a council matter, or does it stay with staff?
So through you, Madam Chair, we have a threshold of 4 submissions. So once we get 4 or more, the matter then comes to you for your determination.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is to the Director relates to DA 2022-0100.001, subdivision 128 lots and new roads, modification to approved staging plan, landscaping plan, and contribution removal of the Pudman Street upgrades and bus shelters. Can we get the details of the removal of the Pudman Street upgrades and the bus shelters? And also a little bit further on, for the same development, a different DA number, or different revision rather than that same DA. I note that there are minor modification, correction or error in condition 1 and condition 56A. What were the error in these conditions?
So through you, Madam Mayor, I'll take that on notice and provide a response to both those things.
Thank you, Director.
Madam Mayor, Can I get that
Yes.
responded to in the business paper, not in any confidential council briefing papers, please?
Yes, certainly. It'll form part of the development application statistics for the following month.
Thank you.
Part of that report.
Point of
Councillor
clarification, just on that,
Yes.
on that matter, that the subdivision is the subdivision that we as a council voted on. I spoke when we voted for it, that to come to council. So, well, what I'm reading there is that modifications haven't come to council, they were just approved by staff. Is that correct? Is that how it works? I thought when the thing came to us in the first place and we approved it, any modification would have to come back to council. I could be corrected, or just asking the question.
Thanks, Councillor Ingram.
So through you, Madam Mayor, where this is still at the assessment stage, in general, your modifications, matters where you've made the determination do come back to council.
Then how could it read approved here? Help me out here, please. I'm struggling. Page 70. It says approved on a matter going to council, and you just said out of your very own words, anything should come back to us.
So through you, Madam Mayor, I like to think, I said, that in general, they do come back. It depends on the nature of the modification. I'll come back to you as part of answering these questions on notice.
Thank you. Thank you. Director? Okay.
Now the question?
Yes.
To the
Councillor
director,
Ingram.
I noticed a matter that I'd had some trouble with is this appeared off this list, which is good, I hope. I had an official complaint lodged in regard to the matter. I'm presuming that's been resolved, but I haven't been notified of any resolution. Is there any update on that, or would you like to speak to me out of chambers in regard to it?
So through you, Madam Mayor, in terms of those two matters, so the DA that was on here was to do with the temporary use application, and as we reported previously, that has been approved, and we are monitoring compliance with that DA. And Councillor Ingram, I'm very happy to come and talk to you about where we're at with the other compliance matters.
You can put the response in writing and be fine. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Ingram. Thank you, Director. If there are no more questions, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We'll turn now to 12.7, 22.136, Young Mosque, modification to exempt section 712 contributions. The recommendation is in front of you. Do I have a mover?
I'll move that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. And a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Hewson. Any questions? If not, I'll put it to the floor. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question through the General Manager. Has Council provided similar considerations in the past?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, I believe this is the first Director of Planning.
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's indeed the case. I understand this is the first time we look to apply this provision in the contributions plan.
Thank you.
Councillor Ingram, yes.
Just going on that question, Councillor, you're indicating that there could be a precedent set here?
Oh.
First time, it has to be.
If it's the first time. Councillor Armstrong, did you have your hand up just then?
No. I was confused, Madam Mayor, as to whether you were calling me or whether you were calling Councillor Ingram.
No, I think I did say Councillor Ingram that time, didn't I?
Oh, it's just you've called me Councillor Ingram many times, that's all.
I know I haven't, and
It can confuse me at times.
It confuses me too. My abject apologies. Okay.
So through you, Madam Mayor, by definition, this is the first time that you've applied that criteria. It sets a reference point for future applications.
Okay, Councillor.
The answer is yes. Is that correct?
The answer, through Madam Mayor, the answer is yes, it would set a precedent.
Thank you.
But I take it as it says. Yeah,
When we talk about
Is
this
it-
precedent, all of these types of matters will have to come back to council for your consideration. But as rightly pointed out by Councillor Ingram, it does set a precedent. So
yes, I understand that. If there's no further discussion, Councillor Ingram.
In regard to setting precedents and giving our financial situation, that is the only concern I have. It's all in regard to our financial situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram. Any other comments, questions? If not, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Foreman, Ingram and Armstrong. Okay, it's carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to 12.8. And that's 22137, the DA 2022 multi-dwelling housing, 4 dwellings at 106 Wombat Street. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. And a seconder, Councillor Dodd. Yes, it's on page 99 of the business paper. Questions? If not, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Whoops, just lost my page. 129, yes. 23138, appointment of a native title manager, and I have a feeling the Mr. General Manager wants to.
Yes, look,
have a
through
few
you,
words.
Madam Mayor, I had a discussion yesterday with a learned colleague who pointed out that, and quite rightly so, B is basically a redundant recommendation, is that I have the delegation to do that because it's a contractual matter with a contractor, or in this case, a set period for an employee that doesn't exceed the amounts. So the recommendation from staff in relation to this matter is only A. B is redundant, and I ask councillors not to consider that recommendation. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I'd like to move an amendment. That amendment would be number A on the, or point A in the recommendation.
Yep. Yes.
Go right ahead, Councillor Armstrong. The motion hasn't been moved, so you have the floor to make the motion your own.
The motion would be that council gives notice to the Minister administering the Crown Land Management Act 2016 to Donna O'Brien, Native Title and Heritage Project Managers engaged as Native Title Managers required under Section 8.8 of the Crown Land Management Act, and that council provides such advice in writing between June and no later than 1 October on an annual basis during the period of her contract.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
Just making
We
sure
got it
that
up.
you captured that. So, Councillor,
Advisor in writing.
no later.
Advise the Minister in writing.
Advise the Minister, just the period between June and October, was that the period you stated, Councillor?
Yes, my understanding of the Native Title Act, a notice from council is required on an annual basis, no earlier than June and no later than the 1st of October.
'31st of October each year.
Well, is it the 31st or the 1st? I thought it was the 1st, but I'll stand corrected if it's the 31st.
Well, just 30. At 31st, well, in the paper it just says 31st.
Councillor Armstrong, we'll just put that up on the screen for you to check our wording.
Perhaps it should be then the after 30th June, but not later than 31 October.
Given because it's actually under section 8.8 anyway.
You've still got it. You've still got to provide it.
I think we saw. Basis. Yeah, it is in the first. It may be implied, but this makes it clear is that we're advising and we'll be advising on an annual basis. So I'm
as section 8.8 recommends.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just making it clear.
So we just. Yeah. Yeah. Look,
we need a segment.
If I'm candid, councillors, it's an anchor point to remind staff that these are the dates, which I welcome. So I think we need a second, Madam Mayor.
We do. I was just saying that. Councillor Armstrong has Councillor Ingram. Any further? I think Councillor Ingram seconded. Thanks, Councillor Pop. If there's no further questions, queries, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors.
That was the amendment. Sorry.
Councillor Armstrong, no motion had been moved, so you moved the motion as you said.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We'll move on to 12.10. Disposal of land, the Green Road, Young. The recommendation is in front of you. Everybody's doing a quick squeeze by the looks. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Foreman. A seconder? Councillor Mackie. Councillor Foreman, do you want to make any comments, questions, queries?
No, not really. We discussed this previously at the last council meeting. It's come up again, and I think that that's probably a fair and reasonable approach to the situation at this point in time.
Any other comments, queries? If not, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Next one, the regional. Here we go. All right. 12.11, Regional Community Strategic Plan. And the recommendation is there. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Hewson, and a seconder, Councillor Foreman. Any questions? Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is to the Director. I note that there are no financial implications, given that the cost of the project is covered by Canberra Joint Organisation. I'm just wondering, is there an increase in our fees as a result of this, or indeed is it free and gratis?
Through you, Madam Mayor, you're talking about the CRJO membership fees?
Well, if we don't get charged for the project, I suppose one way to recover some of the cost would be to increase the membership fees.
Look, I'm not aware. I mean, there has been membership fees increased each and every year, but they haven't been directly correlated to the services that they provide. So I would say no, in principle, it's not directly. In some way, if it could be mapped to it, but my answer would be no, other than the membership fees increase over time. And through the director, you would like to add?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Armstrong, I believe that this was part of a funded project that CRJO were successful in obtaining funding for. So I do not believe that our fees would be increased as a result of them paying for this project.
What would be the savings for council then?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Armstrong, at this early stage of the project, I'm unsure what the actual cost savings would be. We would have to go back and look at how much the original community strategic plan for Hilltops cost.
Through you, Madam Mayor, certainly you may recall the councillors are here. I think it was 2 years ago, we brought forward the idea. There was a regional community strategic plan proposal by the CRJO, and I advised to not to opt in to that because a community strategic plan should be community. So I couldn't reconcile it being regional. However, subsequent the regional community strategic plan that the CRJO has undertaken with the then participating councils won awards by the relevant bodies that oversee the community strategic plan. So I have no argument about its utility. We are one of many, and I see it as it's a natural thing to be part of the CRJO group where everyone is participating, and we would be alone in not participating.
Yep.
So as, to answer your question directly about what the benefits would be, yet to be determined. However, we are part of a mass, and as indicated by the director, it's grant funded, so there's no impost on the CRJO nor us, other than obviously the time to participate, which we would have to do in any case.
I'm aware of other grant funded projects that have had anything up to about a 10% in cost impost. That's the reason for my question.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. It's not lost on me in your comment. Got me.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Yes, nobody has any queries or questions? I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour?
Councillor Armstrong, you'll be voting against?
Yes, I'm not supporting it either.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We've got all right here, so you're against. Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, thank you. That's carried. All right, let's move to 12. Service New South Wales for Business. Once again, we've got the director, corporate and community standing up to this. The recommendation is there. Can I have a mover for this? Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald, and a seconder, Councillor Piper. Are there questions? Yes, Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just note that the question is to the director. I noticed that there's no financial implications here, but surely if we're investing in staff time and our data security obligations are to be met, that there's going to be a cost to council. It's just that it's going to be hidden in timesheets and capital costs in terms of any additional equipment required, IT equipment required. So I'm just wondering if the director can advise us how there can be no cost. Is there no staff involved, and do we have no need for additional data security equipment or procedures? And I would suggest that if councillors are prepared to entertain this idea, then we probably need to make sure that our own customer service procedures are in place and are effective before we take on board the risk that accompanies providing that sort of service for the state.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. In relation to the agreement, it's been in place for a number of years. The last time it was updated was in July 2021. So, as specified in the report, it's just to provide consistency across all councils who have an agreement with Service New South Wales. In terms of the staff time, it would be envisaged that this is when businesses make an inquiry and we can point them in the right direction for assistance, and that would be part of the Manager of Destination and Economies role, which is not it's not a burden, but it's also not specified as time spent on Service New South Wales. And I don't believe there's any need for additional tech requirements.
Okay, thank you, Director. Any more questions? If not, I'll put it to vote. Those in favour? Those against? Councillor Armstrong. Thank you, councillors. We'll turn now to 1213, 23-142, alcohol-free zone suspension, the BOOROWA Irish WOOLFEST. The recommendation is in front of you. Do I have a mover? Yes, thank you, Councillor Foreman, and a seconder, Councillor Piper. Any comments, questions, queries? If not, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We move on to 1214, the works report.
Happy to move with questions.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor Ingram.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And this matter that I've discussed now is to do with capital works and directs to the budget, so it sort of covers two items. I may be able to deal with it all in one go, otherwise I'll bring it back up when the budget comes around. But it goes back to the matter we dealt with earlier in regard to funding being allocated without council's knowledge. And our capital works is another prime example of that been happening, and I have serious concerns, and the amount of money I'm talking about is material, so I'm hoping some questions can be answered tonight. And it's just in the simple matter of gravel reshooting. In the report that was handed to councillors, in this month's paper, there's been 64 kilometres of gravel reshooting undertaken. 32.3 of that kilometres of that have been done in the former BOOROWA Shire, and 32 k's in the former Young and a section of Bibaringi Road. That equates for the 64 k's. We're talking round figures. In the March quarterly budget review, it was indicated that there'd been $398,000 spent on gravel reshooting in the Young area out of their allocation. Now, at that time, we go back to March, so I'll be a bit generous and throw a couple of kilometres on, I think, but let's say there was 28 kilometres of those 32 kilometres were done at that time. So if you do a simple division without being to the cent, it works out about $14,200 a kilometre for gravel reshooting, which could well be the case. And it was quoted $11,500 last financial with the increase of rent. That's understandable. So that's okay. That was in the March quarterly budget review. And we move over to the sections that were done in BOOROWA, the 32.3 kilometres. But actually, in the budget allocated by councillors, there is $0 allocated. Zero. Yet there's been 32.3 kilometres done. So my question is, where did the funding come from for that works to be done? Question one. The word emergency funding was used at the last council meeting, and that's why this is not questions I know. The question was asked last month. If that's the case, I'd like to know where the emergency funding came from what it came under. If that is to be used for some of this, then I'll need the second part of the question will be, why would it be that the emergency funding was only eligible to be used in that area, but not in all areas of our council area? It would make common sense to anyone that the storm damage was created by the same storms. So if you're going to answer me with emergency funding, please make sure you cover all bases and tell me why you couldn't use it in the other area. Kringle Lane stands out a bit. 8 kilometres of road resheeting between the 11th of the 5th and the 14th of the 6th. Now, before you answer me on how that came about, also, I might just let you know that if you go back in your business paper in May, the works talked about for there were for a causeway. I haven't seen too many causeways 8 kilometres long that were gravel resheeted. So I'm not too sure how that came about. And just to top things right off, in concerns in regard to the gravel resheeting and then the financing, works planned for period from now till 30th of June, resheeting on Hartfield Road. For those who don't know where that road is, it's in the former BOOROWA area as well. So there's more funding coming from somewhere. So I'm not having to go and say roads don't need to be done and understand all roads need to be done. What I'm having trouble following is how this can happen when there's no funding there. And as councillors, we touched on a matter very earlier tonight in regard to about $25,000 and $5,000 for removing some stuff. Well, just working on the figures that council's provided us, that 32.3 kilometres, we're looking in the vicinity of probably, because we've been explained very clearly last year, it costs more to do work because of distance, and that makes sense. So about, it could be anywhere from $460 to $480 to $500,000. It's material. So as a council, we need to know where that funding come from. Again, if it's been moved from capital works and allocations that council set, and I think it was mentioned before, and I can ask the general manager, but I know the answer. No one has a delegation to do that except us. And that's why the council's here. That's why the community put us here. So this is serious. So I'll just use the words probably, the misinformation has been given to us, and this is an opportunity to clear it up. This happened last year. And I'll let it go because I thought of improvements were happening and everything was fine. Here I am 12 months later, and I'm not letting it go. The same things happen. The third thing I'd like reported back to council is the remaining funds in the young gravel resheeting program, which will come to us at the end of June figures. There may be something we'd like to do with that. And my last point on it at this stage is, and this is operational, so I don't want to get into too much, but it's just to point out to some people, when you have a look at these figures, and it's been mentioned before, I've always wondered why you go and do 100 metres of gravel resheeting. You take a truck, a grader and a roller, and you do 100 metres and you walk off, 0.2 Ks, 0.3 Ks. So in them 32 odd kilometres in the former BOOROWA area, this problem seems to be solved. There was 4 sections done. One was for 4 kilometres, one was for 8 kilometres, one was for 7.8 kilometres, and one well-known road was 12.5 kilometres. The full section done. So you go back and you look at the other 32 kilometres that were done. There was 3 sections that were just over 2 kilometres. Then there was 36 more sections of roadwork done for about 25 kilometres of gravel resheeting. So it worked out about 0.7 of a K. Now, I know it's operational. Can't get involved how they do it and when they do it. But I think I'd like to see a report of just how much it's costing. No wonder it's costing $14,000 a kilometre to gravel resheet when you're going to do 0.7, 0.5, 0.2 and go somewhere else. This is just highly irresponsible. It cannot be maintained at this rate. The whole overall of the gravel resheeting program needs to be looked at. The allocation of funds, where the funds are being spent, they need to be reported to council. Now, this isn't going away. So I've said enough about it. Now I'll talk more at the budget. But could I please have those questions answered as to the funding, please?
through you, Madam Mayor, the last one, I need to just get those other names down, Councillor Ingram, if you don't mind. But the Coringal Road question, that one is as identified as part of the LRCRP Phase 3 funding. And that was a report that came to council, and that's where Coringal for the causeway, yes.
Sorry, Malcolm. I'm not blending the causeway with 8 kilometres of gravel resheeting. Can you see my question?
Yep. My apologies.
It's in the main paper. I went back and had a look, and I don't like having to go back. But yeah, it's there. So if I know about it, so if you can't answer it now, what I'm asking politely, if I can, is the next council meeting, not a workshop, not in a confidential closed letter from the general manager, in the public domain, how that came about. I'll let you go with the funding for the other roads if you like, and then I'll come again. So how the funding for those rest of those gravel resheeting in BOOROWA, where did the funding come from?
No. Through you, Madam Mayor, we'll take that on notice, and we'll bring a full report on the gravel resheeting of this last financial year to this council.
Okay, I'll send you a copy of the recording of last council meeting, just to reassure councillors who are not too sure that the question was asked before and was taken on notice once before. So that's okay, we don't know that. So let's look into the future. Works planned for period 30th to 30th of June. We're resheeting Hartfield Road. Where was that funding going to come from?
That'll be taken on notice. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you very much, staff. I appreciate you'll take that and get back to us. I just like to make sure that all councillors are aware of our roles and our responsibility, especially when you're talking about $450,000 to $500,000. I have trouble talking to the community and assuring them that everything is right. When papers are put to us by staff that clearly indicate there's a significant problem and have to take the questions on answer all the time, we have a problem. The reason I ask these questions, councillors, is so that we acknowledge we've got a problem and we can start to solve them. Not to cause trouble, but to fix some trouble. Saying things are fine hasn't worked. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram. Any other comments, discussion? Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question to the General Manager and perhaps the CFO. In our accounting principles, what sort of costs are taken as costs to be capitalised when it comes to roads? What's the minimum? Do we capitalise anything less than 5K?
It depends on the nature. It depends on the nature of what you're doing to the road, whether it's
gravel
maintenance. Well, I'll pass to the CFO, but my understanding is some are renewal work and some is capitalised. But CFO?
Yeah, and if it was Councillor Armstrong, if it was part of the project or part of the gravel resheeting, and it was above $5,000, it should be capitalised.
Mr. General Manager, when you read the financial statements on page 43, I think it is, it appears as though if it's greater than $10,000, it's capitalised. Less than $10,000 is not capitalised. Can I just have everyone just take a moment and reconsider their responses? Because I'm reading this off the statements now. Road construction and reconstruction greater than $10,000.
You are correct.
Okay.
It is greater than $10,000 as per the accounts.
My next question is to the Director of Infrastructure. What is the cost of gravel resheeting of 100 metres of road, gravel road? At say Mines Road, 20 kilometres from Yarn, and that could be about 8 kilometres from a gravel pit.
Through you, Madam Mayor, broadly speaking, of course, it depends on the circumstances and how much gravel, etc., is required. We work as a rule of thumb, a high order of magnitude of about $20 per linear meter. So we'd have to work out the square meterage of the road and then the length of the road that we're working with.
Well, if we're doing it, if we've got a 6 metre wide road, that's and we do a 100 metre section, that would be 600 square metres. Councillor Fitzgerald might check my mathematics on that, but I think I'm pretty right. That would be, so would we spend $10,000 to reshoot 600 square metres?
No, it would be less than that, Councillor.
So effectively, we're capitalising a significant number of resheeting jobs, when in actual fact they should be paid for out of maintenance. Is that the case? Given that they don't fit the criteria for capitalisation thresholds listed in our financial statements, but we're doing it anyway. Can I please get a response?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I would have to look and see if it is part of a bigger project and the entire, if it's only that portion on that road, we'd have to relook at that. But generally, when we do gravel resheeting, it's multiple roads at the same time.
I'm aware of that, but when we do 100 metres, or 100 metres here and 100 metres there and 100 metres somewhere else, or 200 metres somewhere else, then you really got to ask yourself: are you improving the asset, or are you simply maintaining the asset? So I look forward to the to that dissertation when it comes back to council in the form of a report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Piper, did you have? No? None over here. All right, if there's not, I will put it to the floor. Those in favour?
Councillor Foreman, Councillor Fitzgerald, Councillor Mackie, Councillor Rolls, Councillor Houston, Councillor Piper, Councillor Dodd. Those against?
Those against?
Councillor Ingram and Councillor Armstrong.
Okay, thank you, councillors. We'll move on to 12:15. 23-144, request to rename Tip Road at BOOROWA. The recommendation is in front. Do I have a mover?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong, and seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Any questions? If comments? If not, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. All right, next one, correspondence. Media releases, Office of Local Government Circulars. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Foreman and Councillor Dodd. If there's no queries or answers, put to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Next one, 12:17, committee reports requiring no action. Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald and Councillor Foreman. Any questions, queries? If not, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Right, the next one, action summary report. We're up to that. Action summary report. I need a mover. Councillor Foreman and seconder, Councillor Fitzgerald. Okay, any queries, questions?
Question?
Thank you. Question from Councillor Ingram.
Just in regard to the most controversial policy that's ever gone out to the public, apparently. It's been held over now to the next council meeting. Is that to give the opponents more time to collect animal feces, or did it have to go out on public exhibition for longer?
Through you, Madam Mayor, because it's a local policy, it needed to go out for 42 days inviting submissions, but 28 days was correct for on public exhibition, but it had to go out for 42 days. That was an error on our part by not putting it out by not stipulating in the original report the 42 days.
Okay. Thank you for clarification of that.
Okay, thank you. No other.
Question, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Armstrong.
To question the General Manager, when would Council be advised that that was an error?
I did notify councillors in the newsletter when it went out, and I put out in the newsletter to say that under the Local Government Act, we had to do it. That's when you were advised in the fortnightly newsletter. So
if you don't read the newsletter, you wouldn't know. Is that right?
Well, yes, if you didn't read the newsletter, you wouldn't know. That's correct.
I suggest, Mr. General Manager, that the newsletter is not the place to have those sorts of notifications. They're notifications you should be coming to council. I thoroughly believe that councillors read their business papers, but I'm pretty certain they don't read the flyers that are emailed out from staff on a regular basis.
Oh, Councillor Ingram, I think I contest that.
Just about had enough, Councillor Rolls, Mackie, Fitzgerald. I'm Ingram. He's Armstrong. Sorry, just using you as an example. It's just got to stop. It's just ridiculous.
Yes, I agree.
If you've got a problem with it, we'll make it time.
I do have to say it is quite offensive. I'm uncertain whether you're talking to me or whether you're talking to Councillor Ingram.
Well,
and Councillor Ingram's in the same state. Now I don't know whether this is intentional or unintentional.
I apologise, and I have many times.
But you'll need to lift your game.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Armstrong.
You're welcome.
Okay. I would just like to say I love the newsletter and I look forward to receiving it because that's the way I keep myself informed of what's going on. If I haven't had the time to have a conversation and pick up the phone, the newsletter is something I actually look forward to. So,
yes, I agree, Councillor. Okay, let's get back to the action summary report. If there's no more discussion, all those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Now, we're coming to the late report, 12/19, and that's endorsement of Hilltops Council 2023-24 operational plan, budget, revenue policy, fees and charges after public exhibition. I need a mover. Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. As seconder, Councillor Foreman.
Any questions?
Questions?
Question, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram.
Just to the CFO, and I did speak with the CFO in regard to a line item in regard to the upgrading of the entrances to Young, and he told me that would be listed eventually in the correct area under capital. Is that correct?
That was correct, yes. My concern is, will the work be capitalised in terms of if it's just mowing and that type of work?
No, I'm sorry. You clearly misunderstood what the motion said and what it means. It was to improve the entrances and work on the entrances to Young so they can be kept like they are in the other communities.
In that case, yes. Well, in that case, it'll be capitalised.
Well, I'm pleased to board it up again.
But I'm just so I've read as I said to you, I read the motion. Initially, we interpreted that motion as being operational.
Well, you haven't been listening to me for 3 months. I'm sorry, but there. As long as we've got it straightened out, I've asked the question. It's been answered. Thank you. On that point, Mr. General Manager, I made the phone call to let the CFO know that I wanted it listed there because I don't want it buried and come here in 12 months' time and not be done. That's the reason. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram. I understand.
Thank you.
Councillor Armstrong.
Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to the General Manager, when will all the outstanding questions that were asked at the two workshops be answered?
To you, Madam Mayor, I understood the questions had been answered, but I'll throw to the CFO in the first instance.
Yeah, Councillor Armstrong, which are the questions that you're referring to that we haven't included?
The ones that I asked you, no?
Just remind me.
Well, I'll point to one in particular. In the additional information that was put on the website, there's 2 lots of income for cemeteries, but it doesn't say what it's for.
Okay, I raised up with the financial accountant. I can just go and read her email, but she said that they keep the cemetery costs separately so they can monitor the actual cost of burials. I haven't passed that back to you, but that's the information I received back.
My understanding it was the income that was shown as other income.
Councillor Armstrong, the CFO is just grabbing his notes.
Look, yeah, I did investigate that, and I know I haven't passed that back to you, but she did say that they keep the burial separately in the Plaques Works, and she said it just makes it easier for them to be able to monitor burial costs. And obviously that's income versus the expenditure.
So which one is the young cemetery, young general cemetery, or young lawn cemetery? Or they're all lumped in together?
They're lumped in together, I think, but that's the answer that financial accountants give me in terms of when they're trying to monitor burial costs. I can elaborate on that if you wish.
Well, I asked the question. I expected an answer. I didn't expect to be blown off about it.
No, I did investigate it. That's the information that I was given back.
I also asked a question in regard to the activities, costing activities that my understanding is we can't do that. Is that the case?
Costing in relation to the cemeteries?
No, in terms of service delivery. The breakup of the cost of service activities. It's the same way that we provide them in the financial statements.
Correct.
I understand we can't do that. I'm just wondering when we will be able to do that.
Yeah, I think you've had a discussion with the general manager. We have got that information, and I think the issue that I raised, Councillor Armstrong, when I got that information is that we're actually doing a project next week to actually recheck the cost centre mappings to the service lines.
So we'll be able to provide that at a later date, will we?
Correct. We do. I've set a project up next Wednesday. We're meeting with the directors, and we're actually going to review the mapping of the cost centres. The reason that I did that is because obviously historically, when I looked at the information, the income and expenditure was mismatched, and I wasn't prepared to actually release that information in its current form. So I'd hope that we could provide that at the July meeting. We meet next Wednesday, actually.
I guess what my concern is that it be provided to the public as part of that as well. For information to the community.
That's the intention. That's certainly the intention, that we can provide that information.
Thank you.
We have pulled it out. We have extracted that information. I just wasn't prepared to release that information because I could see the income and expenditure was not aligned, and obviously that's maybe historical. So we're meeting next Wednesday, and we're actually going to be reviewing the mapping of the cost centres to those service lines.
Can we get an update as to how that goes?
Yeah, I can. And then the executive are reviewing it on the Thursday morning. We've got it set up. I've set a session in the executive meeting next Thursday. So let's set the 5th and the 6th of July.
Thank you.
So that we can go back through it. So that has not gone, what's the word? I have not discarded that. We're actually looking at that quite actively.
Thank you.
Question through you, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I'll go to the pages so it's easy to find. Page 122, 123, 125. Water for Young. Other expenses, 54.5. 123, water for BOOROWA, 77, nearly 77.75. And 125 for HARDEN, other expenses, 21. How come BOOROWA was so high?
Wouldn't HARDEN 19? Did you say 21? I've got 19 here.
On 125 for HARDEN. I've got 21 for
Water Young, other expenses?
Other expenses.
Yeah, Water Young, 54.
Young, 54, 472.
77 at BOOROWA.
That's correct, 77 to 670.
There's been an adjustment to the cost there. I'm aware of that. And water harden only 19. Oh, sorry, I would be operating 21. Correct.
Fundamentally, through you, Madam Mayor, without going into minutiae, the Boorowa water source comes from the dam, and Harden and Young come through Golden Fields. So it is far more intensive to provide water to Boorowa because it has its own dam and infrastructure, where Golden Fields is through pipes. That would be the main difference. I'll ask the Director of Infrastructure. Anything to add to that? No, that's the simple thing, as in Boorowa has its infrastructure, comes from a different source to Harden and Young, and that's the reason why we discussed this before, why we maintain 3 separate funds. Because
and so the Young, if I can just add to that, the Young and Harden water costs have been increased by 5%, and that was based on the verbal advice we got from Golden Fields. Yep.
Fair enough.
They may have increased the access charge slightly higher than 5.5.
So obviously we've got to get some water coming from Golden Fields.
Good comment there. If there's no further questions, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Councillor Foreman, Councillor Fitzgerald, Councillor Max, Rolls, Councillor Houston, Councillor Piper, Councillor Dodd.
Those against?
Councillor Ingram and Councillor Armstrong.
There it passed. Thank you, councillors. 13, I don't have any questions with notice. And no notice of motion, and so we will move into confidential matters, and I will need a mover and seconder for us to do. Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald, and thank you, Councillor Dodd. Yes.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we've now come out of closed session, and I'll now read the resolutions of council. At 15.2, 23-149- proposed new SES headquarters in Harden. Council resolved to authorise the General Manager to enter discussions with the SES and investigate the viability and proposal contained within the report. B, receive a further report detailing findings and proposed next steps. And C, require a fully costed business case for the establishment of the facility. Report 15.3-23/150, Memorandum of Agreement Southwest Regional Waste Management Group. Council resolved to receive and note the report, reinstate the Memorandum of Agreement between the councils of the Southwest Regional Waste Management Group at Attachment 1, and C, delegate to the General Manager to execute all associated documentation. Report 15.4, -23/151- award contract RFT 00005- engineering surveying and design services panel. Council resolved to receive and note the report on the request for tender professional engineering surveying and design services. B, award the panel contract RFT 00005 professional engineering surveying and design services panel to the successful contractors. C, award the panel contract RFT 00005 professional engineering surveying and design services panel to the nominated contractors pending the submission of additional documentation. And D, delegate authority to the General Manager to execute all necessary documentation associated with the awarding of this contract. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. It is now 7:04 p.m. and I'll declare this meeting closed. And thank you, councillors, for your input and also for your work for our Hilltops region. Thank you.